Welcome to the 12th Z Jaipur Literature Festival, and we are here at Darbar Hall. The first session for the day, Writing Family. But before we begin the session, I would like to take this opportunity to thank all our sponsors who've supported us. Z Entertainment, our title partners, Nexa, Festival's associate partner, our venue partner, Rajan Kilachand and Bank of Baroda, Bookstore by Full Circle, our cost partner, Dettol Banega Swachh India, Black and White, Celebrations partner, our media partner, Red FM, Rajasthan Patrika, Bhaskar Group, our new media partners, Business Standard, Outlook, DNA. I'd like to thank our other partners, Aga Khan Foundation, Getty Foundation, Jan Miklaski, J. Paul Getty Trust, British Council, Nordic Lights, Mahindra World City, Dove, Airtel, Kingfisher, Grover, C.K. Birla Hospitals, Avid Learning, our new partners, Population Foundation of India, Child Labor Free Jaipur Initiative, Swami, DMI Finance, Dell, Sun Village, Air India, Ola, O2 Sparkle, our publishers, Penguin, MIT Press, Westland, Oxford Dictionaries, HarperCollins, Murthy Classical Library of India, Harvard University Press, social media partners, Facebook, Twitter, Vayus, Wattpad, and our Launchra podcast partner.
Came on time and all. Hey, Veena. Veena's standing there. She's the pretty one. Intelligent.
Jerry will be signing his books after the session. The book signing area is on your left of the bar hall, and he'll be signing his books after the session. So please, if you have your copies, wonderful. If you don't, you can grab a copy from the bookstore. And Paul is going to sign after his second session, which gets over at 12:15, so about 12:30. We have books for both of them, and you can grab your copies. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 12th Z Jaipur Literature Festival. We are at the Bar Hall, and we're going to start with Writing Family. Please welcome Jerry Pinto and Paul McVeigh in conversation with Veena Venugopal.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here so early in the morning. And welcome to Writing Family. A quick introduction on my right is Paul McVeigh, whose book, The Good Son, is a story of growing up in troubled Belfast set in the 80s, although there isn't a date in the book as such, but I figured it's around the 80s. And on my left, of course, Jerry Pinto, award-winning writer of M and the Big Hoom, amongst many other books. And so we will start with a short reading. Paul, would you like to start first? And Jerry, do you want to read right after or towards the end?
You're in charge.
Okay, so we'll start with Paul and then we'll wing it.
Hello. Hello. Hi, yes. Good. You are awake. That's good. I'm going to read two little short pieces for you. This one is called My Aunt Maggie, and it was where the character came from the book. And because it was a little short piece, it's very sad. But then when I wrote the novel, I made it happier. So I wanted to read you two little short pieces. So this is called My Aunt Maggie. My Aunt Maggie's house smells. Her breath does too. Her biscuits are always soggy and they're never chocolate. And that's because she's poor. She's poorer than Colin McVeigh in my class at school, who only ever has sugar sandwiches for his lunch every day. My Aunt Maggie always has bruises. And that's because she never does anything right. That's what my Uncle Malachi says. But my Uncle Malachi doesn't know anything. My Aunt Maggie is the best. She sings me songs and she dances with me too, and she holds my hands and we jig in a circle and we shout, yoo-hoo! And then we laugh and laugh till we hold our stomachs and we fall onto the settee. My Aunt Maggie is quiet and she's always busy, moving ornaments and straightening pictures and wiping under cups when there's nothing there to wipe. She's getting on everybody's fucking nerves. She never sits her fat arse down. She's getting on my nerves, and my Uncle Malachi says it all the time. But she doesn't do this when she's on her own with me. You only have to look at my Aunt Maggie to know that all she wants is to be happy and for everybody to be happy together. And I know this is true for definite. And not because she's told me, it's because I can see it in every single wipe. And I know it with all the tingles on my arm because I want that too, but there's only us that does, nobody else. So I hide it, and so does she. And I'm going to tell you a secret now, and I've never told anyone this before. When we're on our own, my Aunt Maggie holds me in her arms, and she hugs me tight to her and doesn't let go. And I never want her to. I want to stay there until I die. We die together. And today, she said to me, Stevenson, she said, Stevenson, I love you. And I'm not making it up. I didn't see it on the TV or anything. My Aunt Maggie loves me. She does. And I know because when she said those words to me, my heart hurt and my eyes stung. And I felt so sick. My stomach tried to leave me and go to her and stay with her forever because I can't. I wish my Aunt Maggie was my mummy. I wish I'd grown inside her tummy and that I could remember being held by her all day long. I wish she'd leave Uncle Malachi and take me with her and we could run away together. And when I grow up, I can marry her. And it doesn't matter that she will be older than me because she's older than me now, and it doesn't. I'll keep her safe and I'll never hurt her. And she'll give me hugs every day and we'll be happy forever and ever. Thank you. Right. That's enough.
Paul, even though you sort of chose to read a sad piece, there is a lot of humor in the book, despite the fact that it is set in the grisly circumstances of the troubles in Belfast in the 80s when there were often violent protests between the Protestants and Catholics, and very much like a part of in India where the security forces would come and sort of pull out young men from their homes, etc. So how do you sort of build or sort of weave that humor in through such grim circumstances that A, you have lived through, and B, you're writing about?
Yeah, I mean, when I first wrote the novel, it was very dark, it was very sad, and there was a lot of violence, and I put it in a drawer for about 8 years, and I had to make a decision, is this what I want to send out into the world? If this is the only book that I write, so I want to say that this is all there is, And at the time, I thought it was important to give testimony, what it was like for a child to grow up only knowing fear, never having known what life was like when it was peaceful. And I wanted to say, everyone needs to take responsibility for these generations of children who are growing up stepping over dead bodies and being trailed out of their beds in the middle of the night and by the army. In Northern Ireland, we had the British Army carrying guns, and the only police force in the UK that are allowed to carry guns are in the north of Ireland, and they were colluding with Protestant paramilitaries. And it was very difficult for young Catholics. And so in Northern Ireland, I guess, because things were so bad, you you didn't have any power. So when I was born in Northern Ireland, Catholics weren't even guaranteed a vote. And most people don't know that. And so when the civil rights marches happened, and that's what started the Troubles, because they didn't want to give Catholics the same rights, you had to have weapons because you had no power, and humor is a weapon. You know, if you can mock someone and you can laugh at them, you know, you can bring them right down in size. You know, they're not so powerful anymore. And when they're walking with their gun, if you're sniggering as they walk past, they hate it. You know, because they don't know what you're sniggering at, and if your tongue is sharp, you know, they're not really going to turn around and kill you. They have to justify that, but you know, you can cut deep with your tongue, and mocking is a really great power. So in Northern Ireland, humor is a shield to protect you from them, and it's a weapon to use against them, and to learn how to use humor. It starts in your family. They teach you. They are constant. When you wake up in the morning, they're like poof, 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 and everybody's laughing at you till you can be fast enough to go back into your brother, and then everybody's attacking your brother, and then it's over to your little sister, and then she has to learn, you know, and that's what we do. So it was a way, and in the book, the mum teaches him to be funny, but she's quite often hitting him at the same time, you know, like, you know, she's boof, yeah, all right, and she's making fun of him, and he comes back and going, oh, mom, like this, he goes, got it, you know, you'll be, you know, it's all about teaching protection. And so humor, that's how humor comes into the book.
And humor it's a thread running through M as well, right? I mean, despite M is such a funny character, and she says such funny things, and even the narrator sort of eggs her on onto the humorous side. So does it lighten the atmosphere in the house? And also in India, we are very touchy about making fun of family. Did you worry about that at all?
You know, I told my mother once that I was writing about her. This was when she was alive. And she said, don't bother, it won't sell. Put in a busty blonde and a dead body. You know, so she wasn't particularly concerned, and she wasn't I mean, I think at some level, when you're not mentally well, there is an obsessive quality to that universe, because you're just circling around a certain space. You're not actually flying over other people's space. So things just come in and bounce off again, come in and bounce off. I don't know if she really knew I was writing about her on some fundamental level. As for the humor thing, you know, it's beautiful what you said, Paul. I often believe, you know, Chesterton very beautifully said once, show them your Lear before you show them your fool. So if you want to be taken seriously, you do the serious stuff first, and then you do the humor. And I don't see how you can do that. What is serious stuff? Where is this place? I find actually the only kind of person for whom I have no stomach, because as a novelist, you know, you have to sit down and listen to everybody, because you're all material. Everybody is material. Everything you tell me is tossed into that mill. Every movement you make, every slight inclination of your head, every tonality of your voice, I'm sucking it up. And I'm really sorry, you may not be used. I may not ever think you worthy of use, right? Though you want to be, and you wonder what it would be like if you turn up, you'd hate yourself in a novel. You'd hate yourself because you'd be pared down. Now, the only kind of person I find very difficult to take is the humorless person, the person who takes themselves too seriously. So humor, I can't imagine writing something that didn't have one kind of little sidebar, little jest, little kind of, you know, in-joke, something. And often, I think, if there is a human condition, and if we are going to live together, if we are all going to actually manage, I don't know that we would be alive if we couldn't laugh at each other and laugh at ourselves. So I think actually it's a survival strategy. It's not like you've got a choice. If you were born without it, I only met one man once, a Swiss.
It's a survival strategy, but is it also an authorly strategy?
Okay, this is the thing. You want to pretend that you presented the world as it was. You wanted to most of all, write a brilliant book that would make you seem like a hugely talented author, and you wanted it to seem as if you just did it halfway asleep. Sprezzatura, the Italians call it. You know, I'm leaning against a mantelpiece and tossing off the bonbons as they come to me, and you know, and I will fight a duel tomorrow morning, and I will also dance the polka tonight, and it will all be something that I just do effortlessly. You want to pretend that, but actually you're struggling with everything. You're thinking this word or that word, that moment or this moment, this line too much. Everything is authorial, freaking effort, constipated, trying to get shit out and make it gold. That's it.
Paul, I want to sort of, since this is a session on writing family, can you sort of tell us how much of your family is in the book? And then I want to ask you a follow-up question about certain scenes in the book.
Well, I had originally the novel was much closer to my experience. We lived in a place called Ardoyne, which was at that point called the biggest slum in Europe, and it was a ghetto. I mean, we were walled in. You know, we had walls at the top of my street and at the bottom of my street to keep the Catholic and Protestant communities separate. But as a result, we had walls all around our community, and we were surrounded by Protestant communities, and we were basically grown up in an open-air prison. You know, there was at one point 11 of us in a 2-bedroom house. There were 7 kids, and then my mum and dad.
Oh, Roman Catholics in Nava.
Indeed, yes. And Italian Irish Catholics. So, you know, it's pretty much genetically compelled to have children and drink and other things like that. But yes, we loved it. And so when I rewrote the book later and tried to make it a more enjoyable experience than just having to, you know, put out history, you know, I made the family smaller so that you could follow it a little bit easier, and. But I'd say the mother in there's a lot of similarities, and with the father, and the children are a mash of children. And in fact, there was an Aunt Maggie in the book, but she was taken out, and some of the qualities went into the mother then. But yeah, so there's definitely traits there that I recognize in my family.
So in one of the scenes in the book, a 12-year-old, 13-year-old Mickey goes for a walk with his...
He's only 10, actually.
He's 10. He goes for a walk with his father, and it is perhaps the first time that sort of the father-son bonding experience is played out. And the father who's supposed to be off drink then sort of makes him wait outside and goes and catches a few drinks. And there is this extremely sort of tender scene in which Mickey feels the sort of weight of his father's betrayal of him. I want to know, is there a sense of betrayal in writing so honestly about people who sort of will be identified directly from the book?
Yeah, I think that, you know, I didn't write an autobiography. You know, it is fiction, and the things that Mickey does at the end to his dad clearly are not, well, it would be a more sensational book if it was autobiographical in that sense. But I think what I did was because it was my first novel, I really wanted to know that everything that I wrote was emotionally true. You know, so I could change the facts, but I didn't want anyone to be able to say to me, you know, I didn't believe that, you know, because when I was a kid, when I was watching movies, I was going, as soon as I didn't believe a bit, it was like the bubble burst, and I just wasn't invested in the story anymore. So I really wanted to have that emotional truth, and so, you know, I think, you know, I think all of us at some point growing up feel betrayed and let down by our parents, that we feel that they just didn't step up at that moment. And I think those are the moments. It's a coming of age book, and those are one of the moments that you become a grown up once you start to hold things back, and you don't tell your parents everything. You know, the first time you lie, and never, there's that lie you told that you've never actually gone back and righted, because it just becomes part of the fabric of you, your innocence is going. And one of those is learning that there's a relationship between your parents that you will never, ever understand. There's a part of it that you will never influence, and you've got to learn your place in that. Because until then, you think that they exist for you. And part of growing up is suddenly realizing, they have something going on that I have nothing to do with, and I don't like it particularly, and then you have to understand that. But I think it was definitely, I'd felt, at some point in my life, a betrayal. But what's interesting about that scene, I think, is that it's the only scene really between him and his dad on his own. And what I wanted to say, and he's the villain in the piece, but he's the only one who believes him. He's the only one who believes Mickey. Mickey says, I have this dream, I want to get away from here, I'm going to go to money. He goes, you do it, son. He's the only one that encourages, the only one that says go. And the idea is...
And also gets him the puppy.
Yeah, and also Mickey goes, what I wanted to say was that Mickey's already experimenting with drugs at 10 because this is the environment he's in. And the idea is that, if Mickey doesn't get out, his dad and him have the same dream growing up. If Mickey doesn't get out, this is the man he will become. Because really addiction is... I believe, people drink a lot and take drugs. It's really because they never were allowed to become the person they should have. And so they need to self-medicate every day to help them forget that they didn't achieve that thing, or that society didn't allow it, and their world didn't turn out that way. And that's what that scene's about.
Jerry, in M, the narrator writes, I delight in details, and clearly you do too. So when you were living through this long saga of your mother's illnesses, where she would be well for a period of time, and then she would have a relapse of sorts, etc., were you also sort of carefully remembering the details of this with the idea that eventually there will be a book out of it? And if yes, did that sort of make you feel a little bit of a fake son and a more authentic writer?
Okay, I owe my entire writing career to one woman's interception in my life. This is my best friend's wife. I was once talking to her, much like I'm talking to you today, and we were all laughing, and I was enjoying making them laugh, and it's just like, the wound there is in me, and I think we're all wounded. I'm not saying that I'm a special, wonderfully wounded person, you're not. We're all wounded, and sometimes friendship is just matching wounds. You have a wound, and I have a wound, and our wounds, they fit into each other, and then, there's a nice warmth there that comes out of those wounds. Anyway, so I'm not also dignifying wounds. We need to heal, but we need also to respect who we are. So at that time, I just knew that to make people laugh was to feel loved. Just to feel love, to feel that warmth flowing towards me. And at the end of it, Rashmi Palkhiwala said to me, Jerry, you should be a writer. And I remember this feeling like as if I had experienced my first orgasm inside the brain. That feeling that, like warm and melty and also like, I would love to be that. How do you guess? I want that so much. And then immediately in the lift out, I went down thinking, Jerry Pinto, Nobel Prize winner for literature. Jerry Pinto is an inclusive and wonderful. I was writing reviews for books I had not written. I was like so happy on the way home. And then I got home, and there was my mother raving about something, and my sister slightly annoyed because my sister managed to deal with my mother. Well, I dealt with her in a very jangled way. And I remember thinking, what in this will allow me to be a writer? What in this? How can I be a writer? We have a one-bedroom flat. There are 4 of us living here. There's nothing here that will let me be a writer. But Rashmi wouldn't give up, and she kept on saying you should be a writer. Then one day she said to me, if you don't start writing, I won't talk to you about writing again, about being a writer. I'll talk to you because you're my friend, but I won't talk to you about being a writer. I left in that lift. I took out a piece of paper and started writing my first piece.
But was that about your family?
No, it was about my pimples. I mean, she's like, I couldn't think of anything, so I wrote a tale of 1,000 pimples. And I wrote about I wrote 14 pieces, short funny pieces. Over the next 10 days, I just kept on writing. And if it had not been for Rashmi, I'd have been an addict, I think. I would have been like some kind of like terrible, I was a mathematics tutor at that time. I would have been like one of those slightly drunken teachers who comes and says, quadratic equations, come on now. Do some 10 quadratic equations while I go to the toilet and I drink one more drink. And I would have been like Pinto, the drunkard, like go and teacher who's quite nice when he's in the morning, that kind of thing. I don't know what I would have been because this is, I can't remember ever thinking, okay, yes, the truth, okay? I tell stories because that's who I am, a storyteller. So everything I have said up to now is also a story, right? I'm making it a story for you. Some of it, I don't know how it happens. I don't know, like, sometimes look at M and I think, nice writing, yeah? Who did this? Who? When I'm actually, like, reading the book that I'm working on now, I'm thinking, that guy died. This guy's writing shit. Who's that fellow? So all of this is some attempt, okay, at talking about a thing that refuses to be talked about, but it is about talking. The 3 levels here that I can't deal with. And I'm trying to, I like you guys. At this point, I absolutely love you because it's standing room only, 10 o'clock in the morning. Wow, I'm feeling so good. It'll last 10 minutes after this. But I'm feeling wonderful. I love you. I want to tell you the truth at some fundamental level. But I have no truth to tell except a series of illuminating deceptions about the self. Accept my deceptions. Accept them as deceptions meant well for you. And we can get on. The rest of it is just like me and this thing called writing. So beautiful and lovely and wonderful and so stern and severe and rejecting.
I want to pick out from part of what you said. Even in the book, it's so tightly set inside that one-bedroom apartment. The book rarely ventures out. And there are so few characters who are outside of M and the Big Hoom and the narrator and his sister. Very few friends make an appearance. I don't think a single friend is named. So I want to ask you, in the living of this, did you sort of hold the story within yourself until you put it all down as part of the book, or were you sort of narrating it and chiseling away at the bad bits and in discussing with your friends or other people throughout this process of living it and later on writing it?
See, I think, if you live in India, there is no concept or notion of privacy. We don't do privacy. So everyone in my world, in my school, knew that my mother had a mental problem. They called me Vedi ka bacha, mad woman's son. They taunt. Whenever, like anything good happened to me, they would say something that would undercut it, which would be about like being a mad woman's son. And eventually, you just get to that sour place where you know the feeling in your mouth and you know the feeling in the back of your throat. You're controlling tears and you know that 5 minutes later it'll be over, it'll be done and you'll be fine. So there was no sense ever that this was my story inside me, being held inside me, because it was leaking and spilling and running into teachers who came and patted you on the head and said things like, we know what you're going through, dear, so it's all right. And you knew, you wanted to be reassured and comforted. You wanted to suck comfort out of them, but you wanted another form of comfort, something more substantial. They couldn't give it, though they meant well, and you could see that they meant well, but it was all very, 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 very tortured and mixed up. And fundamentally, it was horribly self-involved and narcissistic, and there were people who were suffering severely more than I was. So all this has to be remembered. So the story itself was a gift. It fell into my lap, and when it fell into my lap, I sat there looking at it and thinking, I want a normal mother. I want a mother who will... I didn't get roles in school plays because my mother would not stitch my costume. So if your mother didn't stitch your costume, then you you couldn't have a role in the school play. You had to have it if your mom could stitch my mother would say, tell them to pretend you're wearing a costume. I mean, they should use their imagination, right? Because you're not really like an earl. You're just a little boy pretending to be an earl, so they can pretend the costume. And I say, stitch now, then I'll get the role in the play. And you didn't get the role in the play. And you carry that as a hurt and a wound. Really? Hurt and wound? Were you raped in the toilet? No. How's that a hurt and a wound? Just trying to deal with all of this was enough. There was Sakshidari, the witness, the absorbing of the role of writer. All that I can do now in a nice miasma of self-love and self-pity. Like, Windham-Campbell Award, Jerry. Doesn't get better than that, does it? I used my mother. I used my mother to write my novel. Ooh. Which one? Which one do you play with? That's all that, play, Leela. We all doing Leela at different levels. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. That's who we are. Humanly, that's who we are. I'm okay. I'm okay with Leela. I'm okay with getting up in this morning and praying actually. Praying. I want to do well. I want them to all line up in front of me with lots of books and compliments. I want, please, let me do well. Then I do yoga and I become myself. And I center myself, all shit like that. And then I come here and do this. And I'm watching myself doing this now and saying, Jerry, the desperation is showing. Ease up. Withdraw. Let them come and get you. You don't have to do all that. How do you deal with it? You deal with it.
In contrast, Paul, in your case...
What in contrast?
The trouble...
Like he's all nicely organized and all. That's the fool on the other side.
In
contrast means what?
In contrast to the situation, not to the person. And I'm guessing in contrast as someone who probably did not do yoga in the morning today. No, but my question is in contrast to Jerry's situation where it is very much a family story set inside this house. In your book, the story really is outside the house, but it bleeds into the house rather rapidly because you cannot sort of insulate yourself from what was happening outside your door. My question is, therefore, if you did not grow up where you grew up, what kind of a book would you have written, and would you still have written about your family?
I have no idea. I think that it was a very extraordinary upbringing. I didn't know. I don't know what it's like to not know fear. I grew up afraid. All my generation, who were especially poor people, because the Troubles didn't affect rich people.
Yeah.
So we were afraid from the moment we woke up. There were helicopters, there was shooting, there was, not only was there the army and the police, and there were the paramilitaries, and the paramilitaries, each area was ruled by our own police, because the police got to the point where they were afraid to come in because they would be shot. So we had our own people police us. So the paramilitaries had an incident center where you could report your neighbor. So you go say, my neighbor has done this thing. And that neighbor would then have a community beating. So they would be taken out by members of the community and beaten. And then this progressed to they were being kneecapped, which is where they shoot your knees off. So they keep you alive, but then you will always remember what's happened, and it was done then as a warning to everyone else. So it was barbaric, and it was not only the outside forces who were doing it to you, it was your own people as well. So you trusted no one, and you were afraid of everyone. So, and in that, in an environment where it's a ghetto and there's abject poverty, so the doors were kept open. So the next door neighbor came in with a bowl in the morning if they had run out, and they shared your breakfast, and you had all that sort of wonderful sense of community as well. And I think that growing up that way, it shapes your brain, and it's permanent. I do a lot of stuff now at home about working class writers, and they say, yeah, but you're not working class anymore now. You're a writer, you know. As if suddenly by getting £5,000 for a book, it's erased, 30 years of poverty, and just like I think, growing up afraid, and it's completely shaped my brain. Growing up in poverty and not having anything has formed me who I am, and I don't think you forget any of that, no matter how you move forward. And so I think just like Jerry was saying, I think your family, who do you first emulate, and who do you first admire? Who do who teaches you everything, even if it's negative, even if it's to say, well, this is what I don't want. I don't want to be my father. I don't want to be this person. I don't want to do these things. That's where you're taught everything. So I think, yes, of course, I think as a writer, you are always going to write about your family, and I think, as Jerry said as well, you're going to make them into a novelistic family, a fictional family. I'd say the interesting thing about what Jerry was saying there about, that these are lies. Fiction is a lie, because people won't believe the truth. If I told you some of the things that happened to me in a day as a boy and put them together, I had to Disneyfy my book. I had to make it into a Disney version of my upbringing. It was horrific. It was absolutely horrific. I couldn't even begin to tell you what a day was like. And when I first wrote my book, and I thought, this is a documentary. And people have to be really strong, have a really strong stomach to read this kind of thing. And actually, I can more effectively get them to go on this journey with me and understand what this boy was going through by easing the pressure and allowing, and so the boy sees it out of the corner of his eye while he's really busy trying to get some sweets from the shop. The girl is tied to the lamppost and being beaten for something, but he's more worried about, has he got 10p for sweets or 11p for sweets, But so and so we go through that way. But I do think that even though I'm aware that what I'm doing is a lie, my goal is to tell the truth. So just I think that's from, just from my personal perspective, I think that if I'm not telling the truth, I've no interest. My lies are only there to be the plate of the truth. They're the boat, to take you on the journey to truth.
I just want to expand that to fiction is a lie is correct, but also memory is often a lie. Yes. In one part of your book, I think you write about somebody who worked with, that I realized later that I was dressing her with the contempt of my class and the notions of my time. And so when you are writing about things that have happened to you, you are only writing about things that you think have happened to you, or how your memory has sort of grasped it. So I want you to sort of answer him, and also sort of talk about the notion of the lies in your memory.
Okay, I think Paul, somewhere is my brother in some ways. Many of the things he's saying, I think, he's saying them so nicely. He's saying them correctly also. You're younger, no? How old are you? 50, okay, 52. I'm 52, so we...
I just look good.
Yeah, you're really much better.
Shocking,
yeah.
I know. I know you're
Yeah, it must be all that Irish, Italian blood. I want to say, fiction is a lie. The truth is the reader. The reader is the truth. When the reader reads a book and brings their life to it, that makes the book the truth. Because everyone who reads your book and says to you, I saw that, I felt that, I heard that, like sukoon aata hai. You feel, okay, I lied, I made that up. You're right. To live with M was not a picnic. I made it a picnic. Disneyfied is a good way to say it. I don't think I Disneyfied. I don't think even you Disneyfy, because I would then find. But what you do is, for instance, in the ending of my book, M just dies naturally in her sleep. In real life, my father died. Yeah. M was left behind. M was stranded. She said, how do I do this? She asked me after he was lying there, and she said, and I don't think she was being self-centered or anything. She was just like, how do I do this? How do I go on? What? So I said, I'm here. And she said, you're not enough. You'll never be enough. And it wasn't like she wanted to hurt me. It's just that she was in pain.
See, now I'm pissed off that you lied, because you write about the fear of losing your father before M, and now you're saying that actually happened?
I had to let them out of the door. I had to open the door at the end and let the reader go out and breathe the air with me as I walked down the street crying. They wanted to cry with me. I had to let them go. I worked so hard at that end. I worked and worked and worked at the end. I worked and worked at the chapters that came after that of M's absolute complete refusal to believe in death. That he was alive, he'd gone off on a trip. She invented that story. It didn't satisfy her. She became crankier and crabbier. It was awful, 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 awful. Why do you want to know? Why do you want to know? Why do you have to know? Why can't I leave you with a woman who just like turned around and fell asleep? That's what I wanted to do. Forgive me, I'm sorry. I mean, if you're pissed off, I'm sorry. I should have maybe done it that way, but I was not doing an autobiography. I'm going to write a book one day called It Was Not Like That. I started writing it and it was such a bad-tempered book. So bad-tempered because I'm so bad-tempered sometimes. And the boy in the book is such a lovely person. I think he's I took the best bits out of myself and put them there as Sakshidari, so that he'd be a good, unreliable witness. There's a bad one here also. Bad-tempered, angry, sullen, hating. I'm not letting him out of the door. Why? You wouldn't like me. You think I'm Michelle Houellebecq. Edit that line. But I'm saying, the whole of everything in the enterprise of writing, is about managing a small universe and managing the God of that universe. So the God of that universe is inventing the story. You're managing the God so that the God sounds like a benevolent and genuine God. It's a tightrope walk. And sometimes I got things wrong. Yeah, maybe I should have. Maybe it would have been powerful, raised one. I couldn't write it. I couldn't do that. So I didn't. Sorry.
I'm still sort of trying to come to terms with that. Paul, I wanted to ask you, do you get annoyed by comparisons to Paddy Clark?
I did. I've only read one that compared it to Paddy Clark, and I didn't think it was a very good review because it spent the first half of the review basically saying, this is how this book is like Paddy Clark, ha ha ha. And then it had the second half of this review saying, but it's not really like that.
Yeah.
So it was like one of those things that you have no control over with a reviewer who says, I want to show you that I read this book, and I'm going to, and here, the example.
No, but not just the reviewer, also the reader who might have read
I didn't know. Who, you're saying you thought it was like Paddy Clark?
No, because there are similarities in the setting and the,
I don't agree. I mean, well, okay, so I only read one review that said that. No one else has ever said that to me, so you're saying it to me. So I mean, the Paddy Clark, what makes me annoyed about that is like, so that book was set in something in the 1950s.
Yeah.
Mine is set in 1980. That one's set in Dublin. Mine's set in Belfast. Mine is about the troubles and people growing up in fear of their lives. There's nothing like that in Paddy Clark. Mine is about a wee boy who's exploring his sexuality. There's nothing like that in Paddy Clark. You couldn't. I mean, just what makes me cross about it is because as a poor person, you only have one story.
That's true.
And that makes me cross. Not that an ego based around my book. It makes me cross. Like, you're only allowed one poor Irish boy story, and it's all the same. You're just all poor, and you run around saying, isn't it terrible, and you make jokes about it. And therefore, why write another one? And I mean, just like in the UK, if you read a book about an Indian boy, then it's like, oh, we've read that one. We're not going to, why bother even translating another one? Because we've got a book about a boy who's poor in India. So that's what makes me, because the similarity, that I find.
So it does annoy you?
I never thought
you
that.
just annoyed me, but.
I never thought, 5 minutes, are you joking? Oh, acha, okay, too. I never thought Paddy Clark. You know why? Because I thought this was Paddy Clark who had developed testicles. Actually, it was like Paddy Clark is beautiful, but it's prelapsarian. Yours was like in up shit creek. Paddy Clark up shit creek, if there was such a thing. So there was, I remember actually being caught and held by this boy's segue over language. Like Luke Skywalker. I loved that. I loved like his mad, intense affair with English. I just loved it.
No,
great book. And you should buy it also. But first mine, then his. He's white. They have pounds. Both the books.
So we have 5 minutes. Would you like to hear Jerry read quickly or yeah?
No, why? Yes? Don't be silly. Okay. I don't read. I remember. Imagine a warm summer day. There is a lovely lunch in your stomach and a blue sky overhead. The blue is leaking into the air and you're walking with someone you love. It's your mother. And suddenly, she is swallowed by a patch of quicksand. You turn and try to help, but she says, go on, it's our only chance. And you go on, part of you goes away, part of you stays. But there was a moment when that depression lifted. It was the summer of lithium carbonate, Li2CO3, lithium, our savior. But lithium was also a poison, and so we had to take M to check her blood to make sure the lithium carbonate levels were always maintained. There was only one place in the city where lithium carbonate was tested. It was the Breach Candy Hospital, an upmarket place in a rich area. But during the early morning, everybody was there. People who had to have their blood tested, like my mother, and next to her, a young man with a very thin file. Why have you come? M asked him. Madam, Auntie, I want to get into NDA, but they are saying there is albumin in my urine. Albumin, is that like egg white? M asked. No, Auntie, I don't know, but they are not giving in NDA. What is NDA? M asked. NDA? Auntie, you don't know? National Defense Academy. You want to get into NDA? Said M. She wasn't sure that she liked that, but then she decided that she regrouped and said, okay, I shall pray that you will get what you should get. Why you're here, Auntie? I have to take tablets because I want to try and kill myself, and so, they have to check what's going on in my blood. Auntie, you're mental? I bristled at this, but M was fine. Yes, mental, she said. Auntie, then please pray, because my Buaji, she says that the prayers of mental people go straight to God. She said, okay, I'll pray. Auntie, only one problem is there. What's that? Auntie, my Buaji, she's Muslim. So, I intervened. I said, he's saying, I think only the prayers of mentals that reach Allah. M looked at him for a moment and said, then I'll pray to Allah for you. I would have prayed to Allah and any other God if I could just be given a normal mother and permission to turn away. Thank you.
All right, so we'll open for questions. Is there somebody with a microphone? Oh.
Hello. Mr. Pinto said, fiction is a lie, the truth is the reader. So firstly, that resonates, it's very true. I wrote a book and it was fiction, but one reader said that, this is my life. And I was like, whoa. Also, I had a question, any of the authors can answer. So how do you find the perfect mix or balance between real life and fiction? As in, how do you draw the line or how do you smudge the line? Like, I don't know where to.
you know, you're the writer. You decide. You know, it's your world. It's your decision. It's, you know, how raw do you want to be? How open do you want to be? How free do you want to be with your other people's lives? You know, because these are your, if it's your family, for example, you know, they're going to read it. So are you really comfortable with exposing their, have you got their permission to expose their lives? You know, how will you feel about that once they've read it and things? So really it's up to you, you know, and some people have written incredibly brave books that have changed the way society thinks because they took that risk. But, you know, I don't think I'm that brave, for example. You know, I think it's really, you know, it's up to you.
Do you want to add to that, Jay?
No such thing as perfect way, only your way. Your way actually will be determined by who you are and how much work you want to put in. It's work, hard work, repetitive work, often tiring, boring work, often going back to the same words that seem like vomit now and cleaning your vomit, taming your words, toilet training your stories, getting them in order, getting them in shape because you want to respect the reader. Perfect doesn't exist. What does exist is hard work. Anyone who wants to be a writer, just get used to the idea that it will be hard work. And you will think that it will happen in like a year and I'll be done in a year. I took 25 years.
I want to just add to that and ask, why did you, both of you, choose to write fictionalized accounts rather than a memoir?
Truth or lies? Okay. First the lie. First the truth and the... No, I don't know. Okay, here it is. When I was writing the book, I was often in pain. But I could say to myself, Jerry, this is about the Mendes family. Step away, just write about them. Why is this like you're in pain and what? Just write about them.
I think that, you know, there were definitely philosophical reasons why I was doing what I was doing. And I think when I'm teaching writing, I always say to students, you know, what's your philosophy? Why are you doing this? What's the point? Are you just adding to the noise? You know, in which case, you know, I wouldn't recommend you keep doing it, you know, because there's not much money, there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of time where no one's interested or you're getting bad feedback. And so you really need to have that commitment and know why you're doing it. So when everything's going badly or you have to get up at 6 in the morning to write before you go to work because you've got another job, that's what keeps you going. And for me, you know, what I wanted to write this book because, you know, I wanted to talk about poorer people. And in the UK, there are very few working class books about working class people that describes their lives, and the ones that do tend to caricature working class people, you know, or there's only one story available about working class people or poor people, and they have to be kept in that. And what I wanted to say was, you know, working class people have as rich lives as you do. And in fact, what might from the outside appear like over-the-top caricaturish sort of laughter and not taking things seriously, that's what they're choosing to show you, that surface. You know, but what goes on is full of love. It's something that you don't see a lot and displays of working class culture. And underneath what might look very rough and people we were hit all the time and people were kind of, you know, but there's so much love underneath it and a fierce loyalty and I wanted to say, you know, let me peel back your prejudices, you know, and I want to show you what this family is really like and just how strong and powerful it is.
And that's easier done in fiction than as a memoir. Sorry, I promise not to insert any more of my own questions.
We've got 7 minutes left, so make it quick.
Maybe the gentleman there?
Yeah.
So you both have been inspired by your own lives while you were writing your books. But while you have used external stimulators like the things, the political and social conditions that were going on in wherever you lived and you with your family, but what about Mr. McVeigh? How about you? What guilt that you feel that you've included in your book? Because you have included, the things that were happening around you, but what about the mistakes you made and what about the things that kept you up because of what you did? Have you included that in your book?
Could you hand the mic over for the next question?
No. Because no, it's called The Good Son, so the idea, but I think what I wanted to show, throughout the book, that he is not in any way perfect, and that's there right from the beginning. He's very judgmental, and he's always, because he's grown up in fear, he's always trying to protect himself and getting the tools to protect himself and gathering information he can use against people. And right from page 1, he's saying, I'm storing this ammunition, to defend myself against future attacks. And when he goes right in the first page, he goes right for the jugular with his brother. Right in the first page, he goes, and tells his sort of secret that no one's mentioning. That and so he, so he's not perfect at all. And I think I don't know about you, but when I rewrote my book after the first, angry version, the reason why I changed my book was because I'd gotten older in between the first and second drafts, and I had experienced things like grief, and I was much more aware of my feelings as a human being, and I was older and I'm nearly dead now, so I kind of thought, I really want people to be kind to all of my mistakes. So when I was writing my book the first time, I was looking back in anger. When I wrote it the second time, I was looking back in empathy, because I wanted to be as kind to their mistakes as I hope people would be as kind to me. So I can't ask that of others if I am not prepared to look back and forgive. So I rewrote a book where I tried to explain why everyone turned out the way they did and what that meant to this kid. And so I'm just really hoping now that they'll do the same to me. You are now owe that to me. Thank you. All right.
Brilliant answer. The gentleman there, please.
Yes. Well, families are small communities with very strong emotional relationships. And my question is, when you fictionalize family, what happens to your emotions? Do you fictionalize emotions, or do you transpose the emotions into your fiction?
Would you like Paul to answer? Would you like anyone? Okay. I don't deal in emotions at all. I don't deal in emotions. I deal in the evocation of emotions. I deal in thinking of how you are going to have an emotional reaction to my book. If I dealt in my own emotions, the book would collapse into itself and become a diary entry. I'm feeling so terrible today. Doesn't work. I want you to read a line and think, oh my God, how did he do that? How did he go through that? What was he feeling that? I want you to have the emotion. So I'm not inspired. I want to inspire.
Yes, sure.
I think I do the opposite. For me, I do when I'm polishing something up. I do think about that. But I sort of pick scabs, like sort of wounds that have almost just healed, and I want to feel them as freshly again when I'm writing. So I sort of pick it and make it raw again, so that I can just describe it. And the second thing, I sort of sidestep. I am a very emotional writer. And I sometimes feel like a wee bit like an actor. Like I kind of get into character and I write from that place. But the other thing that really helps me is I feel like I'm a magician. So I'm writing a spell. This is my piece of writing, and I need to say the words in this order in order to conjure this up. And that's what I'm trying to perfect. It's a spell. When I'm changing the words, it's really like when I read it back, am I going somewhere? Am I moving? Are my emotions engaged? So that I want you to read them, and then this world is going to be conjured up right in front of your eyes. You're going to see the people, the buildings, and you're going to have the feelings as well. It's like a 3D immersive experience that you're going to be in this with me. So I do, for that reason, attack emotionally writing, because I think I want to feel something when I read. Otherwise, I'm just impressed, and a lot of people are impressive. But I don't really want to be impressed. I want to be moved.
I can see two hands there in the middle of the room.
My question is also about emotions. I'm just wondering, after the book, is it cathartic? Is it still raw? Do you relive the pain every time? Is there any healing? What is your take on that?
First, catharsis as a word is actually the emotion that I was talking about. It is the evocation of emotion. The writer does not experience catharsis, the audience experiences catharsis. The aesthetic experience is your emotion will be released through my work. I don't get that. It's not my benefit. My benefit is when I read Paul McVeigh's book and I get catharsis about my feelings, because then I can see myself there. Second thing, let me tell you this. Writing is healing, but it is one of the many things you do to heal. It is not the only thing. To put that burden only on writing is to risk failure. So you need to turn towards light, you need to do things for your body, you need to do things for your mind, you need to walk, you need to enjoy yourself, you need to love yourself and learn to love yourself. That's part of it, is writing about it. So the only thing I can say is that moment, after writing, it's like being on a long walk and you've carried a very heavy rucksack on your shoulder and you put your fingers under the rucksack and you ease that rucksack outwards. And for 1 minute, this part is feeling so good because it's been released from that pressure of the rucksack, but the pressure has moved to a fresh place. And soon that fresh place will be in pain. That's all
We'll take 2 more quick questions, not about emotions.
Either Paul or Jerry, when a writer is retrospectively interpreting in fiction, or through other details, the history of a family, now can that amount to either an act of revenge or an act of compassion, or both in many ways?
Paul, maybe you should take this because yours is an act of revenge in the book.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Yeah.
The gentleman down the aisle here.
There, with the sweater around his, the thing around, yeah, okay. Basically, revenge comes into it, confession comes into it, but what's most of all is witness, sakshidar. I was witness to this, I would like you to know what it was like. I was not witness maybe to these events, but I was witness to the emotional truth behind the events.
I totally agree. I think it is that. I think people do have different motivations for writing. Some people are doing it for money. Some people are doing it for love. Some people are doing it for attention. Some people are doing, And I think that people write their books for different reasons. I think you need to know why you're doing it, and then that comes out. And I think quite often your intention is not in the words, it's underneath the words. Obviously. So even though on the surface your book is telling this story, you as a writer are having a conversation with the reader. So with this boy, for example, it's in the voice of a 10-year-old boy. I'm putting him in situations where I'm saying to you, you and I both know that he is not going to get out of this scot-free, even though he's walking away with a smile on his face, because he doesn't get it. He doesn't get that in 10 years' time, this is going to really screw him up. He doesn't get it. And so I'm like, we're co-parenting. I'm his parent saying, oh God, do you see what he's doing here? But we can't get involved, and you can't stop it, and I can't stop it, because this is the way it goes. And you're talking to the reader all the time. In this conversation underneath the words. So if your intention is to take revenge on your family, that will be really clear in the story. But if your intention is something else, then that comes out too.
Also,
so
revenge is not a bad reason to write a book. It's just as good as love or anything else.
Excuse me.
Sorry,
that may be in spite of the intention of the writer. All right, that the act of revenge or compassion can become a reality.
I think you're not. Please come up to us at the festival and answer. We're already out of time. I hate being late.
So thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Paul. Thank you all. You've been a great audience. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jerry.
That's my pen, sorry.
Oh, so sorry. Which one? Oh, this.